This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you're craving an epic falafel sandwich but can never get it quite right, this video is for you. Today I'll show you all the tips and tricks you need to make the most flavorful chickpea falafel in a regular home kitchen. We'll talk about the mistakes a lot of home cooks make that ruin falafel and how to avoid them. We'll also show you how to make the bread, pickles and sauces you need to turn the falafel into the most epic sandwich. By the end of this video, you'll have the recipes and know-how to make falafel sandwiches better than any restaurant. Now, over the past few months, we ran a load of experiments to develop the perfect chickpea falafel recipe. Our goal was to create restaurant-quality falafel that on the outside are crispy golden brown and on the inside herby with a fluffy and light texture. And this recipe delivers exactly that. The night before making the falafel, fill a container with 250 grams of dried chickpeas. Pour over a ton of water and leave this to hydrate overnight. The next day the chickpeas will have doubled in size. Give them a quick wash and pick out any weird looking ones, and this is what you'll start with. Now you might be thinking that you can use canned chickpeas instead, but that would be a big mistake. They're already cooked, so when you turn those into a batter and fry them, they have nothing binding them together into a ball, and they'll fall apart in the oil. That's why recipes using canned chickpeas need to add a binder like flour or eggs, but that only makes the falafel dense and oily. So don't use canned ones and instead soak dried ones a day in advance. Yes, it needs some planning, but you can make and freeze the batter and have falafel on demand. More on that later. In my opinion, falafel is only good if it's herby and fragrant, so we're making a batter with herbs and vegetables to pack it full of flavour. Grab a food processor or blender to make the batter, even a small one like this works. If you're doing a large batch, use a large processor. Add in 25 grams of fresh parsley with all the stems and leaves, then 15 grams of fresh coriander. Add 15 grams of a medium heat green chilli, then 3 cloves of garlic and 110 grams or half a medium onion. Next, add the hydrated chickpeas on top of the vegetables. Their weight will push the herbs down into the blade so they are evenly minced. Now pulse everything together in short bursts. If you just leave it running, the batter will get overly processed, which results in dense falafel. Instead, pulse it and then every 10 seconds scrape down the walls and fold from top to bottom so everything is evenly chopped. When it's homogeneous, place some batter on your hand and use these 3 tests to check if it's ready. First is the visual test. Look at the batter and it should be mostly paste rather than small chunks. This one on the left is almost there, and this one on the right is what you should aim for. Second is the touch test. Lightly squeeze some batter in your hands and it should leave your hands moist. If not, you need to add a little water. The third test is the structural test. Roll the batter into a ball and it should hold its shape without forming any cracks. Toss it in the air, and if you can pick it up without breaking it and it leaves a wet mark, then it's going to hold together when frying. Now here's where you can make your life easier, by freezing parts of the batter so there's less work next time you're craving falafel. Add the batter into a Ziploc bag and squeeze out all of the air. Flatten it into a rectangle and then you can go from freezer to fryer in less than half an hour. If you're going to use it right away, let the batter rest for half an hour to reabsorb any loose moisture, then season it right before frying. Add 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, half a teaspoon of ground coriander, and 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. Add an optional 1 teaspoon of raw or toasted sesame, then evenly mix the spices in with your hands. And once done, the batter is ready to meet the fryer. Now one mistake I see a lot is shallow frying falafel, and this leads to falafel falling apart when flipped over and an uneven cook. You have to deep fry chickpea falafel in plenty of oil so they sink to the bottom and the batter quickly hardens, forming a skin. That stops it from falling apart and prevents it from absorbing too much oil. So at the stove, place a pot on high heat and pour in a few inches of vegetable oil. You can reuse this a few times if you make falafel a lot. You also need a bowl and a mesh strainer to drain the falafel in after frying. To turn the batter into balls, use a medium or 30 gram ice cream scoop to portion them out. If you don't have one, just use your hands and go for the size. Small scoops make these awesome fun-sized falafels, but don't use a large scoop as they won't cook through. The scoops leave jagged edges which can come apart in the oil. It's best to shape these. I recommend rounding the edges out or shaping them into small pucks. The less cracks on the falafel, the better it will fry. If you have trouble getting yours cooked through, make a dimple in the falafel with a utensil or skinny finger, and that will allow it to cook quicker. Now heat the oil to 170 to 180 degrees Celsius, which is the temperature you add falafel to the pot at. Once added, they need to cook at 160 to 170 degrees. If the oil is too hot, then the bubbles from frying can tear the falafel apart, or they can be overcooked on the outside and raw on the inside. And if the oil is too cold, the falafel will absorb too much oil and take a long time to cook through. Pay close attention to the temperature and adjust it as needed. While the oil is heating, shape a batch of falafel into pucks. When ready, lower them in with a spoon by jiggling them off or pushing them off if they get stuck, and if you're feeling confident, lay them into the pot with your hands. You can also scoop the batter directly into the pot, but expect some batter to break off the falafel. Don't fry too many balls at once, and if you're using a smaller pot, do smaller batches. Fry the falafel for about 6 to 8 minutes and check and maintain the temperature while they're cooking. To know when they're done, watch the bubbles. There'll be loads at first, then it will calm down gradually as it cooks. When the falafel float to the top and the bubbles thin out, they are pretty much cooked through. Use a spider or slotted spoon to pull them out and then drain them in the strainer while you make the next batch. Don't forget to bring the oil up to temperature before adding them in. When it's cool enough, check the falafel for doneness and adjust the cooking time if it needs it. The skin should be a crispy golden brown, and the inside should be cooked through with no damp or oily patches. The crumbs should be distinct and visible, and if so, these falafel are perfect. The ones that aren't shaped end up a bit crispier, which you'll love for sure, and the mini falafel are ridiculously fun to eat. Now I have some good news, you can store them in the fridge and reheat them in an air fryer, and they'll be just as crisp as the day you made them. You now have the knowledge to make falafel better than any home cook, but it's about to get even better. If you assemble the falafel in a sandwich with the salads and sauces we're about to make, you're going to be eating the best falafel sandwich of your life. Now a good sandwich needs the right bread. Store-bought pita or tortillas are okay, but fresh pita is just a whole nother level of amazing. To make these pillowy breads, add 85 grams of room temperature water and 85 grams of whole milk to a jug. Heat this up to around 40 degrees, then add in 7.5 grams of dry active yeast. This will come alive in the milk, and so give it some extra food by adding 13 grams of sugar. Whisk that together until the yeast dissolves, then leave the jug somewhere warm for 15 minutes for the yeast to activate. When the time is up, the mixture will be really frothy. If this doesn't happen, your yeast is probably dead and you need to buy a new pack. In a mixing bowl, add 300 grams of all-purpose flour and 8.5 grams of salt. Mix that together, then pour in all of the yeasty mixture. Add 20 grams of extra virgin olive oil, then mix together to combine. When the liquid has been absorbed, start kneading the dough in the bowl until it turns into a shaggy dough ball. Transfer the ball to a clean worktop and knead it with your hands for about 12 to 15 minutes or for 8 to 10 minutes in a mixer. Check if it's been kneaded enough by stretching a piece of the dough. If there is very little stretch and a sudden snap, it needs more work. When it gets easy to knead, it should form a super smooth ball. Test it again, and this time it should stretch quite a bit before tearing. This means the dough is done, so form it into a ball, oil a bowl, and add the dough in. Cover and let it rest somewhere warm for an hour. Halfway through the rest time, start preheating your oven. Place a heavy bottomed metal sheet pan upside down in the oven, or use a pizza stone if you have one, and preheat to 240 degrees Celsius. When the hour rest is up, the dough will have doubled in size. Dust your worktop with flour, add the dough ball, and punch out any gas. Form it into a log, then divide into 8 roughly equal pieces. If you want to get precise with a scale, they should weigh between 60 to 65 grams each. Keep the piles covered while you turn each one into a neat ball of dough in the palm of your hand. Then flour the worktop and use a rolling pin to roll it into a 6-inch circle that's evenly thick all around. Transfer the rolled out pita to a baking tray sprinkled with flour and keep this covered while you roll out the rest. The pitas need to rest for 15 to 20 minutes before being baked in the same order you rolled them in. When rested, open the oven and throw a pita onto the tray. Close the oven and set a timer for 3 minutes and watch the dough puff up. If you're lucky, they'll all turn into fully puffed pitas. Once the timer goes, use a wooden spoon to drag the pita onto a plate. It should be golden on the bottom and have some minor browning on top. Keep the warm bread covered as you make the rest of them. If any stall while puffing, you can try to flip them over, but it doesn't always work. And once done, you'll have these luscious, soft and fluffy pitas. You can tear them in half to make them into pockets, and this freshly baked pita is exactly what you need to make the perfect falafel sandwich. All that's left is the salads and sauce. We're going to make 3 different salads, each of which serve a distinct purpose. The first salad is a quick pickled red cabbage which adds a tangy pickled flavour and a fresh crunch to the sandwich. This is one of my top 3 salads of all time. Grab a whole red cabbage and slice it into quarters, then slice each quarter into thin strips about this wide. This might stain your hands, so I'd advise you wear gloves. Once sliced, use your hands to scrunch up the cabbage and break all the layers apart. Now you need to wash the cabbage to get it all clean. Fill a bowl with room temperature water and agitate the cabbage, then empty the water and wash the cabbage again. Drain and rinse the cabbage, then add it back to the bowl. Add in 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar and half a teaspoon of citric acid, then work that into the cabbage. That will macerate and soften the cabbage, so mix thoroughly and fold from the bottom to coat it all. Then you let it sit for half an hour to wilt, and then it will have softened a lot and turned a deep red purple. Now you'll amp up the flavour by quick pickling it. First pour in 30 ml of red grape or apple cider vinegar and then 35 ml of fresh lemon juice. Crush the cabbage in your hands to mix it with the liquid so they really penetrate. After mixing, pour in 30 ml of olive oil and give it another mix, and now this beauty is ready. It's sour and sweet with a strong kick of freshness and a great crispy bite. I love this stuff and I think it's just a great quick pickle or salad to make for anything. You can use it right away, but the flavour will intensify over the next few days, so transfer it into a clean jar and compact it, then pour over all of the liquid. And once you've jarred up these pickles, put them in your fridge. They'll last about a week. Honestly, I think you'll be done with them before that. Throw them in sandwiches and salads, even just on a plate with whatever food you have. These things are fantastic. And if that salad was about adding a pickled freshness, this one is about adding some spicy heat. Chili sauces are great with falafel, but this takes the sandwich to the next level. Start by slicing a large white onion into thin strips like this. To the slices add 1 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, then crush them together so they can macerate with the salt. They'll start to soften and go wet, then transfer them to a bowl to sit for 10 minutes while you prep the chilies. Roughly chop 2 red chilies of a heat you can handle, add them to a small food processor along with 3 cloves of garlic, half a teaspoon of ground coriander and a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Add 3 tablespoons of white vinegar, then blend everything together, scraping down the walls until you have finely crushed chilies like this. When the onions have fully softened, pour the chilies over them and mix until well coated. The onions will start absorbing that spicy mixture, which is going to give them a strong kick of heat. Transfer them to a jar and let them sit until you're ready to use them. These are perfect for adding heat to a sandwich, but be careful, a little of these definitely goes a long way. The third salad is a classic Arabic salad, which is perfect for adding loads of fresh flavours to falafel. Dice a cucumber into small chunks and a plum tomato to the same size. Finally dice half a red onion and add it to the others. Season with half a teaspoon salt, a 1/4 teaspoon black pepper, then add 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Mix well and then let the salad sit for 10 minutes so the flavours can meld. You could add some sumac or dried mint for a boost of flavour, but regardless, this is going to be so fresh alongside the falafel. And now for the most important condiment of all, the tahini sauce. This adds creaminess and moisture to the sandwich to really bring it all together. For a vegan sauce, add 150 grams of tahini paste to a bowl, then pour in 25 grams of fresh lemon juice. Add about 120 grams of water in stages to the bowl and whisk together. If it seizes up, add more. Each brand of tahini is different, so adjust the water by eye until you get a smooth and saucy consistency like this. When it looks luscious, add half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Mix and you now have the creamiest vegan sauce known to man. Fill a squeezy bottle with the sauce and you are ready to assemble the most incredible falafel sandwich. Start off by slicing and pockets in a pita bread. Squeeze in a bed of tahini sauce, then add a layer of the pickled cabbage and spicy onions. Add some Arabic salad, then stuff it with plenty of crispy falafel. Give it one last squeeze of tahini sauce over the top, and you now have the ultimate falafel sandwich. If your falafel isn't green like that, I don't want to see it. That is so good, and those herbs, they just give it so much fresh flavour. Now that is what you call an incredible sandwich. Every single component is packed to the brim with flavour, and it all comes together to become one of the nicest bites you'll ever have at home. Honestly, you've got to make this. I doubt you'll find a better video on YouTube for making this. Follow it and let me know what you think. If you're an expert at making a particular recipe or have a craft to share with the world, Squarespace can help you spread your insights and knowledge on the internet with ease. Answer a few simple questions and you'll be matched with beautifully designed templates that you can start customizing into your own website. Upload your own text and photos or use some of Squarespace's stock photos, then personalize the website to make it stand out. You can drag and drop any of the hundreds of pre-designed sections, from product listings to testimonials and videos, right onto your website and use them right away. Squarespace provides you with all the functionality you can possibly need to share your message. I'm a software engineer by day, and trust me, it doesn't get any easier than this. Start building your website on Squarespace today, then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/MiddleEats to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.